record, share my screen. Got my desktop going. Let's get into the project again. Where is it? Cities. All right, so this is where we left off. We were working on this form component here. And now, since we have all of this in one component rather than in two different places, we can handle all of our validations in here. So real quick, who can tell me what the different kinds of validations are? You guys can chime in on chat too. Anyone? Bueller? Good and bad. Wow, I like that. That's funny. All right, any other ideas? Goof and bad. No? All right. Starting off a little slow. So we have custom validation. Okay, that's interesting. So we have two sides to the equation, right? We've got our front end application, which is doing some things. That's taking care of our views. And then we've got our back end. So right now we have it set up so that validations are happening on the back end. We don't have any validations on the front end, but that's generally going to be okay, because if you think about when we're trying to insert something into the database, really the point at which you want to stop bad insertions from taking place is going to be on the back end. It's great to have some front end validations just for the convenience of the user, but in terms of what we want for our application, the back end validation is absolutely essential. Because what if somebody's making a request not through your web application? What if they're sending a request through something like Postman, right? You still need to be able to validate that. So for this, let's hop back over to our server side. So let me just collapse this over here. And then on our server side, we've got this controller here where we've got all of our logic and so forth. So the two places in which we're going to want to validate here are going to be on the create function and then also in the update function. So before, what we were doing is if we got some kind of an error, we were simply sending back that error, right? Actually, not in the get one, here in the create. So let's add a little piece here. If an error occurs, we actually want to tell the browser that something went wrong, so that in our front end code, we'll end up in that .catch block rather than everything just processing as if it worked. So here, instead of just doing res.json, I'm going to add something here to tell the browser that. We'll say status, and then I'm just going to pass in this status code of 400. Okay. And if you guys want to see what a 400 status code looks like, I'll just look that up for you. 400. Okay, so this is a bad request, and it indicates that the server cannot or will not process the request due to something that is perceived as a client error. So malformed request syntax. So again, if we are not meeting the validations here, we would expect that that is some kind of a bad request, and we can pass back this status code to tell the browser about that. Okay. So let's test this out. I'll go back in here and I'll save this file. And then on the front end, I've got my project running over here. I'm just going to open up my console tools here so that we can see what we're getting. So my network tab is there. So I'm going to say add a city. And I'm just going to try to add a city with nothing right now. Okay, so we made this post request, and you guys can see here that it's showing that it was a bad request. And if I open that up, I can also see what came back, right? So I've got this error object that also has that is also an object, and it's got some other properties inside of it. So we see we've got a name key here, and that's for the name input. We've got a population key for that, and then the image URL key right here. Okay. I'm going to change our backend logic just slightly. So as you guys can see, inside this error object, there's also an errors object. Let's flatten it out a little bit, because right now it's kind of a deeply nested object and we don't really want to deal with that. So get this out of the way. Okay. So let's just pass back the error itself. Okay. And then on the front end, what I want to do is I want to actually handle these to show them to the user, to show them that something was wrong, right? So where do you guys think I might want to store these errors if you had to guess? All right, nobody volunteered, so I will call on someone. How about Prativa? Where? Oh, whoa! I have all kinds of stuff coming in all of a sudden. When I threaten to call on somebody, then you guys throw it up in there. So we got form state, use effect, or promise or callback. Okay, you want to narrow that down to one guess? First one. All right, form state. Okay, yeah, that could work. Or we could create a new piece of state just to track the errors, right? That's probably what I would opt to do. So let's come up here, go to the end of the line, and I'm going to create a new piece of state. So we'll say errors, and then set errors equals use state, and I'm going to pass in an empty array. So in other words, when we first render this form, we're going to assume that there were no errors at all initially, right? Okay. Now, how do you guys think that we're going to display these errors? Any other guesses down here? Ternary operator. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a possibility. Message. Okay. All right, Baxter, how do you think I'm going to show these errors down here? You can unmute yourself to say something. Baxter?
All right, so let's see here. You're trying to display the errors, correct?
Yeah, so up here, initially, we're saying errors are going to be this empty array, right? So how can I display those down here?
Didn't we say ternary operator?
Yeah, it's a possibility. What if I just map through them as is? So if I try to map through something that's an empty array, I shouldn't really have any problems with that, right?
Right, you can say so.
Okay. So I'm just going to create some fragment tags here because we're assuming that we want to put this outside the form, like that. Okay, just add a little semicolon there to make the semicolon people feel better. All right, and then inside here, what might the syntax be, Baxter, if I want to now loop through those guys and display each error?
I don't know.
I'm a semicolon first. Okay, fair enough. Good. All right, so let's take a look at another view component here where we did loop through something, right? So here we did something like this. We did a cities.map. Okay. So taking this idea back to these errors here, Baxter, how do you think I'm going to do this? So I've got this variable now called errors. Okay, yeah, I like what Prativa's doing there. Syntax is slightly off there, Prativa, but you're pretty close. So we're going to do something like this. Errors.map. And then what does map take in again? Do you remember, Baxter?
I'm not sure.
Okay. When in doubt, listen to Prativa. I like that advice. That's good. All right, so Prativa is saying map is going to take in a callback function. So let's do that. Let's create a little callback function inside here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take in an error and also some index. So we can just call that I. So for each error, I'm going to render out just a p tag. Okay, and then inside there, what I want to put is the error itself, right? Okay, there's one other thing I need to add to this p tag. Any idea what that is, Baxter? I'll let you off the hook for this. It's what?
Key.
Yes, nicely done. All right, so we'll say key equals I, so that's just the index right there. Cool. And then maybe I want to add some styling too, just to make it look like something did go wrong. So I can say style equals this. Anyone know why I'm doing, yeah, we're going to make it red. Anyone know why I'm doing double curly braces here? No? JSX style. Yeah, so the reason why is because the style attribute actually is going to require that we pass in, or I should say the style prop is going to require us to pass in an object. So the outer curly braces here are signifying that this is a JavaScript expression. And then the inner curly braces are just saying that this is an object, okay? Now inside the object, I'm just gonna say color, and then I'm gonna set that to the string red. Okay, so this should indicate pretty well to the user that something has gone wrong. All right, cool. Now, what we want to do is we actually want to handle an error from the back end, right? I'm going to call on one of you to kind of like give me a clue where to go from here. Did we lose some people? Oh, hold on a second. Darn it. Trying to move these toolbars around. Okay, there we go. I feel like we lost a couple people. Somebody leave? You can't leave once you're in the meeting. All right, Francis, how are we going to that one random guy? He definitely left, yeah, definitely gone. Francis, how are we going to handle an error from our server, do you think? Where are we going to start writing some more code for that? Francis? Oh, I'm mid-chew.
Hi, sorry. I was eating chips.
Okay, no worries.
Catch.
Yes, perfect. So let's add a dot catch here. I can somehow get to the end of my line. So we'll say dot catch. And then what do we need to pass to this, to our catch call?
Error, like a callback function?
A callback
Error.
function, good. So that's going to receive an error. For now, let's just console log it out.
Okay.
Just to kind of see what we're getting there. So if I go back and let's get our console open here, we'll get all kinds of errors happening here. All right, we'll try to submit again. And of course we get a bad, why is it saying that it's uncaught? Didn't we just try to catch the error? Hang on one second, let me just refresh. Okay. All right, so we're seeing here that we did get this error logged out here. And then if we look in the network tab, we can kind of see what the structure of that error looks like. So again, we've got this errors thing happening. And then inside that, I've got my different key value pairs, right? So what I want to do essentially is I want to create a new array inside this catch callback. So we'll say it's going to take in an error, right? And then I want to create this new array, and ultimately I will set my errors to be this array that I've created. Okay? This is the part that's going to be kind of gnarly, and you guys will probably end up copying and pasting your code for this, kind of going from project to project, because understanding it may be a little bit tricky, at least in the the first couple times or so. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this errors array. We'll just say new errors. Whoops, errors. It's going to be an empty array. And then ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to do set errors, and I'm going to pass in this new errors array. Okay. Now we actually are going to have to loop through our object. So I'm going to create another variable in here. We're going to say const inner errors equals error.errors. Okay, and you guys can see inside here, all I'm doing is I'm saying this whole errors object, I want to connect with just this inner property of it. Okay, because the inner property is where I have all those key value pairs, right? Now I can loop through this, and you guys may not have seen how to loop through an object before, but we'll go through it kind of slowly here. So we'll say for, and I can say const key in inner errors. Okay. So when I loop through those inner errors, what I'm expecting to get every time is going to be some key. So the first time through, I'll get this key name. Second time through, I'll get population, and then third time image URL. Now keeping in mind that there's no sense of ordering here inside the object. So if we get them a little bit out of order, that's going to be okay. And if that happens on your test, if there's an image URL before the name error, I don't care, as long as you're showing all of the errors. Okay. So for each one of these keys, what we want to do is we want to push something to this new errors array that we created. So we'll say new errors dot push, and I'm going to push inner errors at that specific key. Okay, Francis, I know you turned your mic back off, but I'm going to ask you, why am I putting key inside brackets here? Why not just do inner errors dot key?
Because that's the index that it's basically like the position it's in. Maybe I didn't explain that very well, but
Well, keep in mind the inner errors is an object. It's not actually an array. So inner errors right now is, you can think of it as this errors object right here.
right.
Okay. So there's not really a position in the sense of there being an index,
Oh,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if I do inner errors dot key, what is that saying, or what is that doing? What would that say if I were to do that?
If wouldn't that say like undefined or something?
Correct. Yeah, because inner errors is not going to have a key actually called key. So it's gonna look for, if I go like this, it's going to look for a key inside that object called key, literally looking for that string. and
Yeah.
that's not right. We want this key to actually be evaluated according to what its value is. So as I'm looping, of course, as I said, the first time I would expect the key to probably be name. Second time through, the key would be population. And then the third time, I would expect the key to be image URL. That's if it was exactly matching this ordering that we have inside here, right? Like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And then inside here, it looks like we've got some other things too. So we've got, this is also an object, and then the actual message is right inside here. So actually I need to add a little something to this. Rather than just do inner errors at that particular key, I need to say dot message, right? So the path again is that we're finding the individual error, and then we want to get the message property value out of it because that's what we want to show the user. Please include a name. Okay, same thing goes with all these other guys. Again, we're going to have these message properties inside here. That's what we want to show the user. Okay. All right, so this is kind of tricky. Let me save this and let's give it a quick whirl. So if I go like this, I'm expecting there to be something, but I didn't see anything. So let me try to refresh this. I don't know. Still nothing. Let's try to debug this. Okay, so I'm going to console log out my new errors. And then sometimes you could put a little message in here just to say new errors. Open up my console. Okay, new errors was an empty array. So there's my problem there, right? So I was looping through these keys inside inner errors. Let's console log that out too. So you see how I'm just kind of like chasing the information a little bit, seeing where am I going wrong. So we'll say this is the key. Okay. Seems like I never got inside there, right? I never got inside that little for loop that I made. So why not? Let's come up even further. Console.log inner errors. Okay, try it one more time. Inner errors is undefined. Aha! This is our issue, right? So if I look at what came back here, this errors object, maybe I went too far. Let's change this slightly. I think I see what the issue was. So we'll go like this. We'll go like this. Take this out for now. Dump that. Let's try this one more time. Seems like something tried to appear up there, right? So I had some errors with no messages inside of them. Okay. So let's just log out console log error at key so that we can see what that is. Open up my console here. True. Does anybody know why I got true? That's a little puzzling. Okay, so inside of our data, this is the problem. It's true that we're getting errors. Yes. Yeah, good call. All right. So here's the issue. I keep forgetting to do this, and you guys will probably forget this too. Yeah, Lawrence, nice catch. That's what I was going to say. So here, we were saying we were getting the error straight away, but actually we're getting the response. So I'm going to say response. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And then instead of looping through the error, we're going to say loop through response.data. Now I have to keep changing this. Oops. Response.data at key. All right, let's try this. No. Response.data.error. Do I have to dig even further into this thing? Yeah, you're probably right. Hold on, let me just log it real quick so that we make sure. So console log response.data. Undefined? Is it response.error? JavaScript be like, here are errors, not going to. Okay, let me log the response and let's see where it is. We got to really find this thing. Okay. Giving us create error. If I look in the network here, response.errors. All right. Axios docs, here we come. Response.error, where are you? Dot catch, console log error. Console.error error. Here we go, handling errors section. So if error.response, oh, here it is. So it's error.response.data. Ugh. All right. So let's try that. We'll say error. Get rid of that. And then we'll say error.response.data. You see what I mean about the copying and pasting? This is probably going to need to be copied and pasted on your end. So be careful, because that, copying and pasting is where bugs creep in. No, I still don't have anything. Four errors. Error.response.data. All right. We're going to get this, I promise. Error.response. Let's see what that looks like. Console. Okay. Error then has a data object, which then has an errors object. Holy smokes. We got to really dig in there a little bit. Dot errors. Dot errors. Yeah, that is ridiculous. I completely agree. Okay. Holy moly. All right, guys. Lecture's over. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, success. Whew, what a good feeling. Yeah, pretty awesome. Clapping. Thank you, thank you. All right, so the cool thing about this is that because we did this inside of our form component, we actually don't need to worry about it for the, or we shouldn't need to worry about it for the update. Now, one small thing I want to do here inside this handle submit is I want to just reset the errors before we even make our API call. So just in case they had some errors on the screen, we probably want to make those go away as they're submitting the new data. So we'll just say set errors, and then I'll pass in the empty array right there. So that way it'll clear up those errors before we even get down to line 23. Okay? All right. Let's test this out on the update as well. So if we go back here to cities and I go to New York City and I want to edit this, let's just remove some of these and let's see if we get validated. No, we don't. So the thing that we forgot to do is we also need to add that status code to our backend as well. So if we go back to the cities controller, come down here to update, in the event that we get an error, we want to say res.status and then pass in 400. And then instead of error here, I'm just going to pass in the error as it is, because I think that's what we did in the create, right? Yeah, in my create, I'm just passing in the error itself. And then the front end is going to kind of dig into that object a little bit. So let's do that here. Oops. Okay, let's go back and try this again. So go here to cities, let's edit New York City. I'll just take some of these guys out. Sweet, validation's there as well. So again, the reason why we were able to do this a little bit more easily is because we had turned this whole form into its own component. So if I had these in two separate places, well, now I have to duplicate all this logic in both places, right? So if I go back to my form here, this is where it's all happening. I'm handling my errors in just this one component, not in two places. All right, any questions before we read through a little bit of this? Okay. So let's go to the city's controller. And let's do our create method. I'm going to have Hutan read through create. So 9 through 15 here. Hutan, come in. Hutan? Now I'm really starting to wonder if he's in front of his monitor or not. Okay, Hutan, I may have to mark you absent if you don't show yourself. All right, then. All right, I have a very small selection pool here. Aya, can you read through the create function here?
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a create function and you're passing request and response through the argument and then
Yeah, so
inside
those are our parameters. Good.
the parameters. And then inside the function, you call the create method, city.create, and then you pass in the body, rec.body. So that's the input that was submitted through the form. And then it returns a promise.
Nice.
there's the dot then. So if it's a success, then there's a callback function. It takes in a city and it returns a response, a JSON response, and with the city.
With the city, good.
And then if it fails, then it goes through dot catch. And there's
Good.
another callback function in here. It takes in the error. And then you did res dot status 400 because status 400 is the error that you get.
Yeah, so that's like us saying this was a bad request, essentially, from the front end.
Okay. And then you make the error into a JSON object.
Exactly. Fabulous. And what's this city right here that's capitalized? What is that?
That's the class.
Okay.
This class.
So specifically, this is a model, right? It's one of the models that we created.
Okay.
Okay, so I see Albert here. What if it's not a 400 status? Are we just predicting the most likely error? Yeah, essentially, that's a good point. So there are ways of checking what kind of error we received on the front end. But for our purposes, let's just keep it simple and assume that if we do get an error, it's because there were some validation problems on the back end. You might get a different kind of error if your server simply wasn't running. Well, actually, you should probably just get a 404 error, right? So that'll be fine too. Okay, good. So that was solid. Let's go down to update and let's read through that guy. Albert, you're on my mind. Go ahead and read this one for me.
925.
Yeah.
Creating an update function, destructuring a params that comes from the request, the city ID specifically. And then we're also destructuring the body. The params looks like it's going to be a path variable and the body is going to be coming in from the form.
Correct.
And yeah, name, population, image are all of the items we're extracting or destructuring.
Destructuring, good.
Yeah. 934 as well.
Yeah, just do the rest of the function.
Okay. And then we are calling on the model schema city, which has a native method, find by ID and update. We're putting in the first one as the search parameter, the city ID.
Good.
And then the next is going to be the things we're actually, hold on. What the hell? Find by ID and update. Oh, and then we're updating the name, population, image URL, which was destructured in lines 28 through 32. So pretty much the new information.
Right.
And
so the fact that there are curly braces here, what does that signify?
It's an object with a variable or the value is equal to the variable name.
Yeah, excellent. So we're creating a brand new object right in here. And because the key names are the same as these variables that we already have, we didn't need to use colons.
All right. And then the next argument is new : true, meaning we want to display the item after update. And then
Okay, so the next argument is an object, right? Okay, that's got new true in it.
And run validators. I mean, I assume that it's just what it says, but like, do you have to put that as true, or? And I guess you do because it's there, but.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is that if I don't specify run validators as true in there, it's not going to validate on an update.
Okay, so even if you put,
which is a little unusual, you'd kind of think that would be the default, right? But
yeah.
so
like if you put required equals :true in one of the as like the model schema, then it doesn't matter because it won't run the validator on line 43. Like, do they both have to be there, or?
Yeah, because if you don't run validations against that on an update, then somebody could slide through and potentially pass in blank fields for those. Now, it would still validate on a create. It just wouldn't necessarily validate on an update.
Okay, and then we got the promised return. Pretty much exactly what I said, taking in the city and displaying that in a response.json format. And then if we catch an error, we're putting in the status code 400. It's going to be an error, and it'll also display that in JSON format.
Correct. Yeah, so we're passing that back to the client. Excellent job. Cool. Let's go back to the form. This is the front end part of things. And most of what we did was inside the submit or handle submit here, but let's also take a quick look at this up here. Okay. Who shall I call on? Prativa. What's going on line 7?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So in line 7, we are creating a state. I mean, so that we can display the list of errors to the user. I mean, on our page. We are creating the error, and we are destructuring by giving those square bracket and mentioning errors and set errors. We are destructuring and passing that argument to the user state.
Yeah, so the argument that we're passing signifies what?
Right now, we have empty array as our errors.
Yeah, correct. So this is our initial error state. It's just going to be that empty array. Cool. All right, now that I got you on the line, take us through this handle submit a little bit.
Handle submit. Okay. Inside the handle submit, it is taking the argument, the event, and on line 19, we are doing event at prevent default, so that we are stopping our browser to react normally. I mean, so that we can skip the get request. And in line 21, we are setting our errors to be empty array again.
Yeah, why were we doing that again?
Because if we have errors previously and when user submits the form, then we don't want our user to see the earlier error messages. That's why we are resetting the errors to be empty array.
Correct. Very good. Perfect. Then what's next?
And inside Axios, we are passing on the object with the key and value. Since the key and value are same, we are it looks like destructuring, but it is not destructuring. It is the object with key and value same. And we are passing the data from the form state.
Right. And the reason why we know this is not destructuring is because you guys can see the object
inside,
here
yeah.
has not been set equal to something. If we were destructuring, it would be, right?
Yeah.
We're creating a brand new object here and passing that to the Axios function. Good.
And again, should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
And again, since it is your favorite promise, it is returning promise, and we are doing .then and .cats. If we don't have the error, we are just navigate. We have the callback function, again your favorite, and we are. Let me.
Tell me real quick, Prativa, why am I not going like this? Because I saw this error today, and yeah, again, your favorite. Why do I not just go like that? Because this is very important that you guys kind of understand this part.
Because if you do that, then it will automatically navigate you to that page, but we want our callback function to do that for us. That's why we need a callback function.
Indeed. Yeah, exactly. Not only will it try to do this right away, but we also have no access to a variable called response, right?
Okay, yeah.
Versus when we create this callback function, we will have
Yeah.
access to the response inside the function,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, but that's a really important point, is that we don't want to just invoke navigate right here, because that will invoke before we've even gotten our response back. It'll
Mhm.
try to take us somewhere before we're even ready to go there, essentially.
Mhm.
Good. All right, and then inside of our .catch, this is where things got a little bit prickly. So let's try to go through that one too.
And inside our .cat, we have our all the errors there, and again it's callback function. And inside our callback function, we are creating the inline 20, inline 30, inline 30, we are creating the empty array so that we can store all the errors there as new errors. And we have our another variable inner errors where we will be digging up inside the error, that is error dot response dot data dot errors, and we are going through the list of errors. The inner errors is the object. That's why we are doing this kind of for loop, where we have const key in inner errors, and key is the key, I mean not the value but the key we are denoting to.
Correct.
And inside for loop we are pushing all the the inner errors dot message, and we have that square bracket over there because key, that means
Yeah, why am I
that
not just saying like this?
uh, that means I need to see the error. I mean, because we can have the errors of different, different fields in the form.
Yeah, exactly. So if I say inner errors dot key, it's going to literally look for a key in the object
Key.
called key, which it's not going to find, right? Because I don't have
Yeah.
any keys in that object called that.
Mhm.
So it needs to be like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally, what do we do down here? Line 38?
And we are setting our errors that which we post in the inside our for loop. We'll be setting that errors in our errors, and
Mhm.
we will be.
So this is us updating the state, right? We're calling on this function that we have up here to update that errors array.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And then down here, all we're doing is we're just looping through these guys. Does anybody want to like go through this? I feel like this part probably doesn't really warrant any extra explanation unless somebody feels funny about it. Does anybody want to talk about our errors mapping? Only thing I want you guys to take away from the errors mapping is just that you're able to map through an empty array and it simply won't show anything on the screen. So that's fine, right?
Okay.
No need for a ternary operator, but there's nothing wrong with having one either. You know, we could ask a question, something like errors dot length, and then if that were the case, then I could just render out this stuff, right? But in this case, it's not even necessary. We can just map through them as is.
Am I done?
Can you go? Yeah, absolutely. Can you clarify the previous ternary into English? Okay. All right. Not being sarcastic. All right, that's fine. So let's turn this into English. So let's say errors dot length greater than 0. Okay. So that's saying if the errors dot length is greater than 0, then we want to do this, right? Okay, if that's not the case, I could have null over here. So in other words, if it's not the case that that the length of the errors was greater than 0, then I just want to output nothing. You could put null inside there. No, actually, Albert's correct that we could skip the 0 entirely, because dot length, if errors dot length is 0, that would be a falsy value. Okay. In fact, if you want something even, something even easier to use, you could use this little short circuit operator inside JSX. And again, this is not required knowledge for anybody. So if you're already kind of like behind and this stuff doesn't make great sense to you, please don't worry about this. But I can just say something like this. So if errors.length is a truthy value, then I want to display this. Otherwise, it will simply display nothing. Okay. But ultimately, I'd go back to this and say this is even better than that, because we can map through it whether it has nothing in it or whether it has something in it. All right, cool. I don't know if I want to ask for thumbs because I'm afraid of what I might get. Up? Okay, not as afraid as me. Right? Okay. Anyone else thumbs up? Sideways? Thumbs up. Okay, Francis is feeling good. Gonna rewatch. That's fine. I'll post it up. Kind of. Rewatch. Yeah. Up. Lawrence got it. Cool. Fantastic. Thumbs up from Prativa. Nice. Rewatch. I hear you. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to let you guys go for tonight. Let me know if you have any questions. You can still hit me up through Mattermost. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to be covering login reg. But again, this is going to be a potential black belt feature. Till what time? Probably like, well, definitely until 5. But if you try to catch me this evening or something, will be a black belt feature. Yeah, exactly. It kind of depends on which exam you get though. Like some exams might have sockets as a black belt feature. Some might have login reg, but I don't think any of them have both of those. So if you're going for the black belt, you're going to want to be familiar with both the login reg and the sockets. We can get the easy one. Well, I'm not really sure which one you guys will think is easy. And I'm not sure if you'll know that yet until you kind of go through both. Okay, so yeah, what I was trying to say is you can definitely get in touch with me up till 5. And then this evening too, if you shoot me a message, I'll try to respond to you anyway. So don't think that there's like a hard cutoff or anything. AKA most advanced concepts we need to cover for black belt. Pretty much. If you can do all the stuff that we've been doing up until now, I may cover nested documents later on in the week. That could crop up on one of the exams. So, and I wouldn't say that that's like particularly a hard thing. It's just something that we haven't really touched on. Sockets. Yeah, what about sockets? We'll be doing that on Wednesday. Yeah. So tomorrow morning, login reg. Make sure you guys are there at, okay, yeah, no problem. Make sure you guys are there at 9 so that we can, yeah, the sockets are pretty cool. I'm not going to talk about them a bunch right now, but I think you guys, you'll enjoy what they're capable of. Nice. All right, so make sure you guys are there at 9 in the morning for some algos, and stay safe. Look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks. You got it.
Oops.